Well, welcome to another video with inside the Digital Pros Nocode Academy, and this one super excited because it's time to introduce FlutterFlow drag and drop. Now this is been a highly anticipated set of features with inside FlutterFlow for quite a while. It opens up a whole plethora of opportunity for you to extend your own applications, and in this particular video I'm going to give you a bit of a walkthrough and show you how to get up and running super quick. So without further ado, let's get into the video and let's get cracking. So in 2024, the FlutterFlow team have released drag and drop capabilities directly into FlutterFlow. There's some brand new widgets which we can now use. We can get away from doing those kind of boring situations where you put little pluses by widgets to kind of move them into somewhere else within inside the user interface. We can now gracefully drag and drop widgets into designated areas. And in this particular video, that is what we're going to focus on. I'm going to take a pretty standard FlutterFlow application. We are going to make those changes where we can then drag into a respective area. And of course, in this particular video, we're also going to look at pulling those widgets back out from the target area and move them back into where they come from in the first place. So here is the example that I've got here. Very simple kind of horizontal kind of row here, which has got some components in there. I'm just going to drag the components into this particular area, and as you can see, the list view is now being populated with those particular items. And of course, I can then move those back out as well. So I can take my staff member back 1 and move them back into here in 2 and move them into 3. So I can move them in and out. And of course, I'm tracking all of that, of course, with inside the user interface. So what I've done is I've kind of got most of the application kind of built, and with some basic widgets, we're going to implement the logic and of course the drag and drop widgets directly into this particular sample project. Let's get into it. Okay, so as I like to do in all of my walkthrough videos, I'd like to give you a little bit of an introduction to the starter project, which is fully clonable with inside the link in the description, of course. So if you'd like to follow along, there's nothing more than you need other than a copy of FlutterFlow and this particular project cloned. On the left-hand side here, you can see that here is all of my basic widgets. There's nothing special going on there whatsoever. They're really just kind of containers in columns and rows and all that kind of stuff that make up the look and feel of the user interface. I've got a list view here that's going to be mapped to a page state variable to then show the staff members that's going to be sort of placed within inside the list view itself. And then down here I've got a very simple row, and that also has some dynamic children which is mapped to another page state variable which is going to kind of contain my source staff members. Okay, well, we'll go through that in more detail very shortly. I'll just pop over and show you actually we're inside the page, the actual state management of this particular page. So this is an app state, this is page state. You can see here that I've kind of got that list here, staff members selected, which is kind of what is being displayed in here, and the staff members available is what is being displayed in this particular row here. We'll come back and we'll talk about these particular indicators very shortly, but what you'll notice is as well that these lists are actually using a custom data type. So it's a list of a custom data type. Now that custom data type is configured just over here. In fact, I'll get the right one there it is. You can see here that I've got one called staff, and in here it's got an ID, it's got a name and a photo URL. So super basic, but of course this could be a row coming from a database or something like that, but I've just kept it nice and simple in this example where we're just using a custom data type. So that is pretty well much how that is set up, and we're going to start implementing the logic very shortly. We're going to have to add some more widgets in here to handle the kind of the drag and drop technique. Now what we're going to be dragging and dropping is going to be a component, and here you can see here we've got this staff component. If I just click on that here, you can see here there's really simple. I've got a conditional builder widget here that's kind of displaying kind of like a very small kind of version of the actual row here. That is kind of displayed in the kind of the bottom kind of row. Of course, if I just toggle the little eye here, you can see that this has kind of got the larger version. And of course, I've got a component parameter that's allowing me to choose which one I would like in the designated list view or the actual row on the home page. But again, we'll come back and we'll configure that very shortly. Now, with inside the actual staff component itself, I've got a couple of component parameters. I'll just show you those. Here, of course, I'm passing in the actual custom data type into this particular component. And of course, all I'm really doing then is displaying the required values on the actual component itself. Now we're going to have to extend this component very shortly with a draggable widget, and we're going to need to then associate a value from the staff custom data type with that draggable widget, because we're going to need to have some kind of identifier to kind of indicate, well, this is the unique item that we are managing within inside the kind of the drop target sort of widget itself. But again, it will all come clear as we walk through that. This is expanded Boolean indicators, really again just a parameter that allows me to then, on the conditional builder, to determine whether I would like to show the kind of the more expanded view, which is what you're seeing here, or of course we just want to then see the smaller view, which is just down here. So that is pretty well much it with inside the bits that we need to set up. So we'll come back and we'll focus on some of these pieces very, very specifically very shortly. So let's now move into the next part, and let's start now talking about the functionality we need to implement within this particular sample. Okay then, so with this starter project loaded up, this is what you're going to see. Pretty dumb project. It doesn't really do a lot. We've kind of got these staff members that's being pulled from the page state variable. I've kind of got these kind of like hard coded really as just custom data type entries with inside that page state variable. You'll see that there if you go into FlutterFlow and you inspect it. But there's only 3 in there, and of course I can't drag, I can't do anything at all into these particular areas. So let's now move on and let's start now configuring the draggable areas where we can now start then adding that functionality. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is define 2 areas within inside our user interface that will be a kind of a drop target. Where are we going to be kind of moving these widgets about? Now, we know that we got one here at the top and we know we got one here, so the most convenient place to put that is within inside here in the widget tree, which is within inside the column. So here is the kind of the source container. This is the kind of the white container with the borders that we got around the edges there. Now, what would have been really nice in FlutterFlow, they may have corrected this at the time of you watching this particular video, but it would be great to be able to right click on here and say wrap widget and then choose the kind of the widget that we need here, the drop target widget, but it's not there, so we need to add it in by hand. So just cancel that. So within the column, let's just hit the plus, let's just do a search for drag there, and of course you can see here now I've got this drag target, so just choose that. That's just going to be kind of here, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab hold of our source container, I'm just going to drop that into that one there, and of course that just moves up. So we now know that everything within inside it is going to be able to take receipt of this drag target. Now we also need to do the same up here as well. So this particular kind of list view and just above the target staff container, we just want to be able to do exactly the same here as well. So just hit plus, let's just do a search for drag here, choose drag target, and of course I'm just going to drag that into this one here, and of course that's now wrapped around the edges. So that's pretty good. And one thing you can do with the drag targets, you can expand it out. You can see here that it's kind of like almost looks like it's being shrink wrapped to there, but we can actually expand this one out. So just choose the expansion there and it kind of moves everything out. So that is our drag targets set up. Now what we need to now do is we now need to tell our drag targets what is the type you're going to be dealing with. You could be doing numbers, you could be doing sort of strings or some other data type with inside FlutterFlow, but of course we have custom data types, so we are going to be managing and identifying by what is actually moving into those particular drag targets by the type itself, which is going to be our custom data type. So on both of these we need to define that, and so with that selected on the right hand side you can see we've got the drag target properties. You just simply need to then choose the one you would like, and of course mine is a data type, so choose data type, and I'm just going to choose the one that I want, which is going to be staff. I also need to do the same thing for my drag target as well. So just here again once more, just choose the data type and then choose the staff itself. So that is our drag targets set up. Let's now move on to the next bit. Okay, so now that we've got our drag target set up, we now need to work out what is draggable in the first place. Now, previously I showed you the staff component. It's always great to promote really good reusability in your applications if you're using widgets in multiple locations. So for me, the natural thing to do is create a staff component. Now that makes it easy for me because I just need to then add the draggable widget in one particular location. So let's go and do that now. Let's move over to staff component. Now it's a little bit more convoluted because I can't wrap the widget here with the draggable widget. So what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to have to right click on this. I'm going to wrap the widget with a column just like that. And what I'm now going to do is hit the plus here. I'm going to do a search for the draggable widget. There it is. Just select that. Then what I can now do is I can now drag the component container into the draggable. And then all I need to do then is right click on this particular one here and then say remove widget. So I'm right back to where I needed to be. So we've now got the draggable in place, but now we need to associate the component parameter that we got coming in. We need to associate that with the actual draggable widget itself. So with the draggable widget selected, just down the right hand side here again, just like what we did previously, just change the type here. I'm going to choose data type in my particular example. The type is now going to be staff, but what's slightly more interesting is that it's come up with this value here. So really all that we need to do here is we could associate like single sort of values outside of our custom data type if that's what we want to. So if you like tracking an ID or anything like that, then you can pull that out and you can put that in here. But for me, I'm going to make it really simple. I'm just going to track the component parameter that actually comes into this particular component. So with that selected, we can just go up here where it says component parameters. Let's just choose a staff, hit confirm, and that is all set up. That's as easy as it comes to setting up the actual draggable widgets. Let's move on to the next bit. Excuse the interruption in your learning, but I just wanted to reach out to you to let you know about the Digital Pros Nocode Academy. This particular private community is fantastic. It's got all of my training content there, lots of written articles, question and answers, a code library, lots of topics around the no-code space, and a fantastic community. Please do check the link in the description. It'd be great to have you part of the community. So just a quick little check-in then to our local running project. You can see here things have taken a little bit of a change here. We've now got this nice expanded kind of white container, and that was just because we expanded out the actual drag target widget. And of course now I've got my sort of horizontal kind of scroll here, but now of course I can now move these things about, which is great. But of course it's not doing anything right now. That's the bit that we now need to work on next, is how do we load these particular widgets into this particular list view. So let's move on to and do that now. Okay, so this way it gets a little bit more interesting. Let's move over to then the drag target that we've got here. This is what's going to take receipt of those staff custom data types here. So we've got drag target selected. Move over to the action flow editor. Let's open up the action flow editor, and I can spend a little bit more about the events that we've got at the top here. So on drag accept, this is what's going to the event is going to be fired as soon as we kind of drag and drop something actually into that particular area. That's at the point where it's taken receipt of whatever we're actually dragging into it, and then we can play out a number of different actions. On drag enter, of course, is when we're kind of in that hovering state where we're kind of sort of dragging the stuff over. We kind of haven't taken our finger off the screen or the finger off the mouse or anything like that. It's before we've let go. And then of course you've got on drag exit, of course, is when we kind of then move everything actually outside of that particular region. We're kind of exiting at that particular point, which allows us to kind of do some sort of visual sort of UI changes and stuff like that. You probably saw that in the actual first of the actual full project when I showed that earlier. So let's now quickly add the on drag accept. Now we're going to kind of add some actions in here to kind of add kind of these custom data types into our kind of target list, and that's really straightforward for us to do. Just hit add action. Now we're just going to look at the state change here. We're going to update the page state. And let's now set the fields, add the field. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to now kind of take the draggable that we've got, because at this particular time we have the draggable within inside that particular event. We know we have our staff. Now I'm going to want to add that to then the selected list. So just choose selected. Now I can go here and I'm going to say add to list. The value I'm going to select is this drag target. So this is this kind of this value that's now available to us within inside the on drag accept event here. So just choose the drag data. So we've got that, hit confirm. Now we know that it's a custom data type that we kind of set up in the draggable that we did in the previous segment. So we know that we got a one-to-one mapping there between the staff data type that we've got there and this particular list. So we're not going to get any errors or anything like that. And of course, once we've moved stuff into the list, we then need to remove that item actually out of the list that it's actually come from. So what we could do is choose the add field again. Now this is the staff members available, so that's the one at the bottom there. And all we're going to simply do here is say remove from list, choose the value. Again, it's going to be the drag target and the drag data, and just hit confirm like that. Now, if I quickly flip over now and just close that down and flip over now to the test mode, let's see that in action. Okay, so here we are then in test mode. Let's try dragging our staff members in. There we go. They are looking like they're going in perfectly. That is brilliant. So that's really good. There is some steps that we still need to take though, because with inside this particular drag target, we're going to kind of still going to open ourselves up to a few problems, because when we kind of like try dragging these things about, and I just drop back in here, you can see that we're starting to get duplicates. So we need to put some kind of logic into our application to prevent that from actually happening. So let's now move over to the next bit, and let's do that now. So previously I was talking about promoting really good reusability with inside your application, and of course if you reuse widgets, then why not create a component? Well, in this situation we need to create some actions that we want to use again, and we want to use them in more than one location. So the FlutterFlow product is fantastic because it gives you this opportunity to create what is called action blocks, and that's what we're going to use now, because we're going to need to create some common functionality where we're going to want to check to see if the draggable item is a duplicate, is already in the list or not. Now we need to do that in two places. We need to not just do it in the list view here, we also need to do it in this particular row here as well. So let's now create an action block. You can create two types of action blocks. We can do it at page level, or we can do it at application level. Now an application level action block means it's available throughout the whole of your application. Page level is very specific to your page itself. So let's now move over and let's now create the action blocks. So with the homepage selected here, I'm going to move over to actions here, and here you've got this option called action blocks. Just select that. Now this is where we can choose whether it's an app level or page level. Now to be honest with you, the functionality is probably going to be at page level here, but I'm just going to create an app level sort of action block. It can be in both locations, entirely up to you in your own use case. Let's create the action block. Let's give our action block a name. So I'm just going to call this one is staff in list, like that, and hit create. And we're going to be in a familiar location now with inside the action flow editor. Now we need to choose a return value. We're going to say that as a result of this conditional check, we're going to return back either true or false. So of course I'm going to choose Boolean here, and we are going to then return that value back. But we now need to define some parameters. Now because this is a reusable component, we're going to want to pass in the draggable staff item, but we're going to want to pass in the list as well that we're checking against. Now we've got the top list and we've got the bottom list, if you remember, inside the UI. So this allows us to kind of just set up a parameter, and then we can check regardless of what list it is. It doesn't really matter that we're passing in. So choose the define parameters here. Let's choose this first one. So this is just going to be staff, like that, and this is going to be of type, and of course it's going to be our data type, and we're just going to choose the type here. That's going to be staff. Now we need to set up our next parameter. Now this, we're just going to call this one list, like that, keep it quite straightforward. This is going to be a list, but of course it's going to be of type data type, and I'm going to select it to be staff as well. So we've got those nicely now set up like that. Now we can now use those now with inside this particular action block, and we're going to kind of set that up now by doing a conditional check. Okay, let's add the conditional action itself, and this is where we can now do that conditional check with the kind of the values that's actually coming into this particular action block. So what we need to do is we need to first sort of grab hold of the actual list that's coming in. Okay, so we can do that by going to action parameters, and we're going to find the actual list itself. There it is. Now what we now need to do is we now need to filter that list down. We're now going to look to see, is the ID of the staff that we're passing in, is it contained within inside the list? We're going to try and see if we can get that list return back that for us. Okay, so let's put the filter condition in, choose conditions, choose single condition. The first value, we're going to grab hold of the staff. This is the staff action kind of parameter that we got coming in. So just choose this, and then we're going to go to action parameters. We're going to get to the staff, and what we're going to do is we're then going to go and get the data structure field, and we're going to grab hold of the ID itself and just hit confirm. So we have now the ID of the staff. We now need to equal it to then the equivalent which is in the list. So choose second value here, choose the value, and of course here is the item in the list. Choose the available options, the data structure field itself, and we can just select ID like that. So we're now going to, hopefully what will happen is when this runs, if that staff member is actually in the list, we'll know we're going to pull it out because we've then done that matched on the ID there. So once we've got that, let's hit confirm. We now have that available to us. Now what we now need to do is we now need to say, is it set and not empty? So if the staff is in the list, then we know that it's set and not empty. So that's obviously going to then return back then a true result, or it's going to be false if none of these filters match. So if we don't get that condition matched, then we know that we know that doesn't exist in the list as it is. Hopefully that's pretty clear. Hopefully I've explained that pretty well. I felt like I repeated it a little bit, but hopefully that is pretty clear in what we're doing here. Just hit confirm. So positively, we're going to move in this direction, and if it's not there, we're going to move in this particular direction. So all we simply need to do in this action block is say, well, return true if it's found, return false if it's not. So just press action here. We can add a return, and I'm going to be very specific about the return values. I'm going to say add return value here, and I'm going to say true if we're finding it, and I'm just going to then do the same thing here, add return, and I'll just be very specific, say add return value, and of course I'm going to say false there, like that. So that's all that we need to do. We now got this reusable action block, which we can now move over now into our main application, and we can now use this, and I'll show you how to set that up. Okay, so let's now set up our action block with inside our drag target for our selected staff. So just click open on the actions. Now this is where we now need to set up. Just hit plus here, and we've got this option called add action block. Just select that. Now we've only got one action block set up, so it's just naturally setting that one as the default one. Now I'm going to set the parameters here. Now the staff is going to be the draggable item that's going to be coming in, so just choose a dragged target data there. That's our staff custom data type. Now we hit pass again. This is where we now need to pass in our list. Because this is reusable, we can choose one of two lists here. I'm just going to choose the one that we got here, which is going to be the page state, and it's going to be the staff member selected list. Hit confirm. Now just move that down. In fact, I'll just collapse these now. We don't need those anymore. Let's put in our action output as a variable result. We're going to need this because we need to check to see, are you true or are you false as a result of the action block. So I'm just going to call this one staff member results, something like that. There we go, that's in there. And that means that we can now do a conditional check here. So just press plus here, choose add conditional, and we just need to go to then the actual conditions itself. So in fact, I can just go down to then the action outputs here, and you can see here we've got the staff member results. So just select that, and of course now it means that if you're true, you're going to go in this direction. If you're false, you're going to go in this particular direction itself. So we need to grab the update component state, because we only want to kind of make sure that we add a staff member if it doesn't exist. So let's just cut that action. Let's just go down here, and we're going to paste that action in there, and that is all that we need to do it. So we can just close that down. Let's hop it back over to then the local test mode. Let's just see if that now stops us getting those duplicates. Okay, so here we are then in local test mode. Let's drag our staff members back in like that. Let's now try doing what we did before, where I could just grab hold of one of these and just let go. There we go. You can see now that they're not being duplicated, which is fantastic. So that's all set up nicely for us. We can now move on to then moving stuff actually back into the next zone. So let's go and do that now. So the great thing is the action flows that we just created, we can reuse those now in this particular kind of drag target. So let's just go back to our drag target. Let's go over to the open. Let's just copy all of this here. So we can copy the action chain, just close that down. Let's move to the target, drag target, the one at the bottom here, go to the actions. Let's open up the action flow editor. Let's paste those in, and we can now set ourselves up nicely to now sort of reuse some of this. So let's go to the action block first, because we need to handle a different list. We're no longer dealing with the selected list. We're now looking at the available. We want to see if the person that we're dragging back in is part of the available list. So we don't need to change the staff, because we know that we've already got the draggable data, but the list does need to be changed. So let's just switch this over from the staff selected. Just make this change here, choose the page state, and then go to members available like that, hit confirm. We do need to make a little change here. We need to change the name of this. So I'm just going to change this then to then staff available like that. Result, just give ourselves a different name there, and that is all that we need to do there. And we can now move this and this actual check here, we can apply in the conditional check here. So we can just go up here, let's select that, and then we just want to go down then to our action outputs, and we just want to choose the staff available result, just like that. Now what we need to do then is we need to then update the page state, because we've kind of got some changes here that we need to make. We need to add to a different list. So here the staff members selected, we're not actually going to be kind of adding to the list. We're now going to be removing from that list. I should just choose this and choose then say remove from list. The value to remove, of course, is going to be the drag target itself. So just say confirm there, and of course we're then adding it to the available. So instead of removing, we can then just say add to list, choose the value to add, and of course we just need to choose then the drag target and choose the drag data and hit confirm. That is the reverse, and that's what we need to do. We should just be able to close this out now. Let's quickly just test this again and just make sure we're getting the behavior that we expect. Okay, so here we are then in local test mode. Let's move our staff members in here like that. That's all working as it was. We can move 3 back in. Let's see if that works. There we go. Perfect. That's looking good. And we can move those back in there like that. And of course we haven't got the duplication issue in here as well. So everything is playing out really, really nicely. A couple of little tweaks that we want to make to this particular application. I'll show you how those are set up, but that's pretty well much covering quite a lot of the drag and drop functionality. So you would have noticed in the final application at the beginning, when I was kind of dragging over, I was kind of seeing this kind of highlighted green of my actual border of my container, and the same for the container that's just down there as well, as I was kind of dragging in and out. I'll show you how I've set that up here. So with inside the target staff container here, if I just scroll down here, you can see that I've got a border color that's kind of conditionally set here, and I'm looking for this is a target highlighted kind of Boolean indicator. If it's true, then I'm going to display this or use the success color, and of course if it's false, I'm just going to use the secondary background color in my application, which just matches kind of the container color here. Now I've got the same rule applied here, so let's now configure up the action kind of flow editor just to kind of like make that happen in this particular application. Okay, so within then the drag target, this is where we now hook onto those additional events. So just hit open here, and this is where we now need to select the on drag enter and the on drag exit. So just choose on drag enter there. Let's add an action, and this time we are just going to look for the page state there. So update the page state here, set the value, and this is where we now will do the target highlighted. So this is the kind of the top kind of one that we've kind of got here that we need highlighted. So just choose is a target highlighted. Now this is on the drag enter, so of course we're just going to set this value to be true. I'm just going to be explicit here and just say true. What I can also do now is just copy this particular action, and of course on the drag exit we want to remove the highlighting. So all we need to do is then just paste that action in here, just select that, and of course we're just going to set this to false. But one place we also need to also add this is if I just copy this action, it's on the drag accept. So as soon as the drag has been accepted, then we can remove that highlighting as well. So just down here at the end of this condition, we can just say paste action, and that will also set it to false as well. So that's all that we need to do there. We can just do the same thing for this particular one here. I'm going to leave you to kind of do that by yourself because you don't need me to explain exactly the same steps, but it's just using that different Boolean indicator. So that is pretty well much this application all done. Hopefully you've enjoyed this particular kind of walkthrough. It's the drag and drop features inside FlutterFlow have really kind of opened the opportunity there to kind of do so many different types of kind of setups inside your application. It's great that you can kind of hook this also onto database results as well. So feel free to explore using databases on here as well. But hopefully that's give you a little bit of insight into how everything is set up. If you've been watching this in the Digital Pros Nocode Academy, thank you for being a member. If you're not already a member, please do check the link in the description. There's so much of this kind of content on there, and all of my content lands there first before it ends on YouTube as well. So it's a bit of a exclusive material as well, available at certain times as well. Lots of sample applications as well for you to get your teeth into, code libraries and lots of other written articles and all that kind of stuff. So it'd be great to see you as a member. If you're watching on YouTube, really appreciate if you could subscribe. And of course, like the video as well, because it obviously gets out there to the masses as well, and shows how these wonderful features in FlutterFlow can also support everybody else's projects as well. So until the next video, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.